Hi, my name is Max, and I'd like to share with you my experience meeting ayahuasca for the first time. It's a sacred plant medicine used by shamans in the jungle of Amazon that helps people enter altered states of consciousness. This has a profound potential for healing our body, mind, and spirit by coming face to face with the smoothed parts of ourselves and embracing them with loving kindness. Today, we'll explore what it actually feels like going through this experience on a personal example. The ceremonies were held during the night in the Maloka. It's a special building in which shamans create a sacred space to hold the ayahuasca ceremony. The maestros energetically protect and hold the ceremony space by cleansing and removing negative energies and spirits with Icaros. An Icara is a magical song that is taught to the maestros by the plants themselves. These songs have spiritual power which enables them to energetically guide the ceremony. The Icaras are used to heal, protect, guide the participants with magical vibrations that are coming directly from the heart of the shaman, which makes it impossible to fake or copy by someone else. I felt it during the ceremonies myself. These songs were guiding me. It's like in a movie Matrix. You download the fighting lesson movements and your body does the work, with your mind not actually understanding what's happening. The masters drink ayahuasca with you during the ceremony. This enables them to see and energetically guide the ceremony most effectively. Everyone has a different experience when doing ayahuasca, so yours might be similar or unlike what I've seen and felt. One might see images, build-in stories, hear voices that other than your own, or perceive it as a strong emotion that you will perfectly understand but won't be able to put in words. In my first night, I started with 1 2 ounce cup, and 30 minutes later, I could feel my body started vibrating. Liquid in my belly started moving around and was looking for a way out. The only thing I ate that day was a cookie, so a few minutes later it was out. I started seeing hallucinations with my closed eyes. Most of the times, I just saw fractals. Lots of colorful, chaotic, yet beautiful patterns. My focus started to shift from me to feeling people around. But I remember the instructions from shaman, and I reminded myself that this should be a personal journey. So instead, I asked ayahuasca to show me what I came for, and each time I did that, I wanted to throw up again and again. When I finally heard music, I felt that I could see each note to elevate myself from a lower vibration to a higher, just by jumping on a higher musical note next to me. Then it sped up, and instead of notes, I had ability to jump between different realities that were changing themselves as I was ready to make a jump. Later on, I noticed that my body was shaking and moving in takt with music, and at some points I was just not breathing. It felt like I only saw what was happening in those realities only between my breath. And when I was returning to breathing, realities dissolved and became fractals again. Next thing, I noticed I was looking at something, probably a tree. I could pull myself out from that location and see myself from behind, like from this third point of view. But when I moved back to the first point of view and I looked around the tree, I could see myself looking at myself from the distance again. In a sense, it showed me that I could be anything in this world, and somehow connected to other parts of it. Best explanation would be here that I felt that we are all one. But I already knew that from my past experiences. In some way, it felt boring to me. I could compare it to like 2 grams of mushrooms or maybe half a regular dose of LSD. The experience was definitely far less intense than DMT. And at that moment, I thought next 2 nights will be also boring. Oh boy, I'm glad I was wrong. On a second day, I woke up early, meditated, did yoga, and spent day with reflecting on the last night and thinking what I could have done better. We took a vow of silence for 3 days, so there was no one I could share my thoughts with. This brought up an idea in my head that interactions with other people could bring up far more potential outcomes than one person could come up with. I took 2 cups of eye at the beginning of the ceremony. It took me about 2 hours before I started feeling anything. It felt like my body was falling apart receiving all that new information. All those new words were building in my head, one after another. In some moment in time, I could even see the builders behind it. They didn't seem to care about me because they knew I will forget about them. But one stopped and looked at me for a moment. It looked like it was a snake or a lizard. All he needed to do is to pass, and magically behind him appeared a solid pattern of what he was building. It was very difficult to come back to reality to make notes, but the more I did it, the easier it became. There is only so much that our conscious mind can handle, so we have our ego mind to filter all non-essential information. So at this moment, I could slow down all the processes inside of me, and when I silenced the ego or quieted down the mind, all subconscious information suddenly became available to me. How I see it, your ego just doing its job to protect your mind from the intrusion from the other side. But all those restrictions were lifted. Now I could spend as much or as little time in other realities depending if I felt like this was something that I need to make note of. Some of those were there are the whole universes in me, or how to stay longer in the world and make friends, how to measure how much my body can handle. Every time I tried to ask what else I need to know, I would throw up and feel like shit. But I think I managed to download and understand a few pieces of information that I find very valuable. One of them is related to evolution. There are many ways how evolution can happen, and one of them through mutation. So now imagine that there are parts of DNA that are no longer serving you any good in this, and like this purple liquid is searching for those parts and replaces them with ayahuasca DNA one by one, step by step. I felt like this was not perfect yet because you already have your microbiome set up and it definitely will not be welcoming new microbes that it's not familiar with. To finish this step, you need to bring new lives into existence, and part of the process will be complete. So, we kind of become warriors on the path of evolution. This might look like a very slow process, but who knows what we will find out in the future. We closed the ceremony and I thought that my trip was over. I ate a little bit of a soup and I felt some movement in my stomach. I didn't give it too much attention. I went to my cabin and started preparing to go to sleep. But something interesting had happened. I started tripping again. Someone started conversation with me, and that voice was asking me gently if it could stay in my head. It felt like I could fetch another consciousness inside of my head. That was kind of scary, and I was evaluating my options, looking for right decision. And am I strong enough to control it? Will it ruin my life? If I allow to exist? What if I allow this being to stay in my head and I'll become bipolar? These were my thoughts. It might sound funny or crazy, but I've heard stories from my friends and family and even had personal experiences, and it didn't feel funny back then. I felt that this voice inside my head was made of darkness, not light and love, so I refused its offer. Voice was still looking for its ways in, but I knew that I'm not going to do it unless someone experienced enough will guide me with the right questions or right decisions to ask. Weeks later, I'm still wondering if I made the right choice. Third night, I drank 2 cups because last night's experience showed me that that was as much as my body could handle. I threw up a few times and I felt terrible for a few hours, but nothing had happened. My mind was clear, no visions. So this day, I decided I was going to observe others. There was so much love and light in seeing other people breakthroughs. It felt like I was there for a different purpose. Not that I can put all of my experience into words, but there was one more gift that I noted. I call it a magic hug. When I hug someone with a whole heart and love, like you are the whole universe and other person lets you hug them in the same way, it feels like you both dissolve in oneness, and when you release it, you feel both kind of like dizzy or high again. I know it's not the best way to describe it, but it's something that happened to me before, and maybe in the future I'll have better words to put it in. From reading about ayahuasca before the ceremony, I kind of had expectations that I need to heal some traumas that I didn't know. Or maybe talk to Mother Ayahuasca and she will guide me in the process of my diet, maybe need to change my habits, or will show me the past or the future. This is also what I've heard from other people, but nothing like this happened to me. I was just glad that I survived. I had a sense of accomplishment. I knew something changed in me, but I didn't know what exactly was or how to necessarily describe it. I love how you hear stories of breakthroughs here and there, but not everyone will share with you what they had to go through or how many sessions each took in order to heal themselves. You'll only understand how hard and deep this work is only after you'll gather enough courage and experience it for yourself. I know that everyone experiences things differently, and I've seen some amazing changes in people after only few ayahuasca sessions. But at this time, I will leave personal stories private, and hopefully in the future, these people will decide to share their stories too.